Good evening, everybody. We'll get started in just a minute. Nancy, how you doing? Charlie, Kaylee, Scott, Donna, Patty, Joe. What's going on, buddy? Bailey, good to see you popping in. Jeremy, Melinda, Tim, how you doing? Hey, Ashley. Hey, Marsha. We'll get started in just a second. We'll give people a chance to jump in before we start up. Chuck, how you doing? Glad everybody's jumping in. We'll make it quick again like last night. No longer than 20 minutes. I'll stop it no matter what at 20. Tango, how you doing? Nancy, I owe you a phone call. I didn't forget. Hey, Holly, how you doing? Luke, Dina, how you doing tonight? Hope y'all had a good weekend. Less than a minute. We'll get going. Kobe, how you doing, sir? Always good to see you. Alan, Mr. Woodcock, how you doing, sir? Matt, good to see you jumping in. Again, I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. They're calling for rain tomorrow, so don't blame me. Luke, I'm doing good, baby. I'm always doing good. Janice, good to see you. Sykes, thanks for jumping in. Andrew, thanks for jumping in. Guys, we'll keep this around, like I said, 20 minutes, hopefully less. I don't want to ruin your night. It is Sunday night. I know Walking Dead is on. I'm recording it. Jeff, good to see you, bud. Mr. Johnson, I love you, brother. Always good to see you. We got to do lunch sometime. Hey, Melissa. All right. Diaz, what's going on? Mr. Early, good to see you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. So last night, we did part one of what we're looking for in a sheriff's candidate in Pender County. Tonight, I'm doing part two. There's so much that I want to say, and there's so much passion, and there's so much I've learned over the years that we need to look for that I had to do a part two, and I'm going to try to get in as much as I can. So real quick from last night, just to review, we talked about the state law requirements. We already know from last night, if you want to run for sheriff, you got to be 21 years of age. You cannot be practicing law at this time. You cannot be part of the General Assembly. You cannot be a convicted felon. And you have to live in your county for 1 year prior to your registration. Good to see you guys jumping in. Samantha, Tim, Steve, Jeremy. So if you meet those requirements, you can run for sheriff. This whole misperception that you have to be actively in law enforcement is completely false. You do not have to be a law enforcement officer to be sheriff, not under state law. You could work at McDonald's for 25 years and say, I want to run for sheriff and run for sheriff. And it's perfectly legal. You have every right to do that. Now, of course, we want someone with experience, which is what we jumped into last night. We talked real quick about the things the sheriff does with the jail, the court, civil, regular police functions, things of that nature. We talked real fast about what we're looking for as far as education. We want someone with a college degree because we've seen the differences as a line officer and as a supervisor, and especially in a courtroom with search warrants on what experience does for you. Good to see you guys jumping in. I'll try to talk to you guys in a little bit, just try to get through some of this. We talked about experience last night, how important it is that there's two parts to law enforcement with a sheriff's office. You've got the detention side of the house, you've got the law enforcement side. You got to have someone that knows about the detention officer school, someone who knows about all those things. I'll give you an example. How thick does a mattress have to be in a detention facility? That's a law. That's federally regulated, state regulated. It's got to be 4 inches. Who would know that? Your sheriff better know that because he's responsible for that. And if he doesn't, take up the responsibility, then you, the taxpayers, and I pay for that. On the law enforcement side of things, we want someone who's worked different units because the sheriff's going to be in charge of so many different things. We want someone who's supervised all of those things. We went in a little bit on that. We talked about instructor experience, not only working the job, supervising the job, but teaching the job. Guys, thanks for jumping in. Colin, Catherine, John, Michelle, Brian. We talked a little bit about we want someone involved in the community who's done things for the community, being part of committees, volunteer work, things like that. We want a facilitator, someone who's going to build bridges, bring people together, tear down walls. Those are some of the things we talked about last night. So getting into tonight, I want to start off by saying I like the other candidates. Every one of them has good qualities and has done good things for our community or the community that they serve. All of them have. Larry Brown, fantastic guy. I have talked to him. I respect him and his wife very, very much. Lawrence Fennell, fantastic gentleman. I've met with him. We've talked about a few things. If I could take those 2 guys and put them together, man, I'm going to tell you what. Whoever wins needs to add those 2 guys on their team if they don't win, because those guys are great people and they have great ideas that would be good for our community. So getting into what we're looking for again, I didn't touch on some of these things last night. I'm going to get it tonight. Advanced law enforcement certification. In North Carolina, there's a law enforcement certification program. For instance, you got your basic, your intermediate, and your advanced certification. You don't just get those certifications because you paid for them. You don't get them because you have so many years in law enforcement. You got to have time in, but you also got to have the training credits to go with it. Those aren't things you just get. You need to have that. We want someone who's going to have an advanced law enforcement certificate and fully understand all these different parts of law enforcement. We want someone with specialty certifications, someone who's done more, someone who's done things. Here's an example. School resource officer certification. That takes 400 hours of training. I want someone who's going to have these certifications, who's going to be able to say, look at what I've done. I've done this. I've done this. I've gone above and beyond my mandatory 40 hours of training, because the mandatory 40 is not enough. Every one of us in the profession knows you need more than that 40 hours. And that's up to your sheriff or your chief to get you that training and allow you to have that training. I want someone who's received awards, things to say, hey, look what I've done. Detective of the Quarter. That's from Sheriff Causey when I worked for Sheriff Causey. Officer of the Quarter. That's from Sheriff Ed McMahon. Officer of the Year from the Rotary Club. These are the things we're talking about. When we mention we're looking for somebody with extra stuff, this is what we want. We want someone with these awards. We want someone that will come along and say, hey, I've gone above and beyond. I've done this or I've done that. Those types of things. Let me throw this at every one of you. We get hurricanes, right? The first hurricane that comes through here, that sheriff is going to be tested. Has the sheriff been tested? Are they ready for a hurricane? What type of experience is the person we're going to have with incident commands? Have they ran a command post? Have they ran many command posts? Have they ran major crime scenes? Have they been parts of homicide investigations, robbery investigations? Have they had to make those decisions? Because that's a lot of joint work there where you're bringing in people. When the hurricane comes, you're going to have the National Guard, every agency in the world coming here, and we're going to have to trust somebody to bring everybody in the same room, lead by example, and give people tasks and fall under your incident command. We need somebody that's done that. We need somebody that's been there, somebody who's had that training, somebody who's gone to Texas and gone to the National Training Academy for incident commands. We want someone who, when the storm hits, I don't have to worry about who's going to come to my house and try to attack me and my family. I want to know that my law enforcement's on top of it. We want someone who has fired law enforcement officers. We want someone who has hired law enforcement officers, someone who has proven themselves, someone who's dealt with these types of things. That I can't explain to you as a supervisor what it's like to have to take somebody's firearm, what it's like to be at home in bed and you get a phone call that one of your officers just wrecked and he was impaired, and now you have to come out of bed and you have to go there and you have to deal with their family and you have to walk them through what's going to take place next. Have you been part of an SBI investigation because you were part of something that occurred while you were working or not working? Because as a supervisor, if it happens to your troop, it happens to you. You will be investigated also. As an instructor, if you teach somebody and something happens, you're going to be investigated also by the SBI on the way you taught them and instructed them. You have to be prepared for that. We made a campaign promise in the beginning when we were starting out, and I want anyone who wins this position or seeks this position to make the same promise. We will not fire any deputy working for the Pender County Sheriff's Office. As long as they remain professional through the campaign process, why would you go in there and clear house? Why would you go in there a few weeks before Christmas and tell somebody you've lost your job, you're no longer here, I'm replacing you? Everybody deserves the right to prove themselves. You have to go in there with an open mind and understand that these people have been there. They've been there all their lives. They have careers. They have families at home. They have medical plans, retirement plans. You can't run around and say you're going to clear house. That's not how it works. Allow these people an opportunity to prove themselves, to adjust to your new objectives, your new goals that you have to clearly set out for them to follow. We want someone that's going to do stuff like that. I get phone calls, and people I know get phone calls of people trying to solicit them to support their candidate. And they're telling them that this is going to be my number 2 and this is going to be my number 3. Well, somebody needs to go read the statute book, because statute 163-274, which is in the process of being rewritten as 163A-1388, it is illegal to offer positions during a campaign to anyone. You cannot do that. It cannot happen. You cannot say that this is going to be my number 2, this is going to be my number 3, because now you're soliciting their votes. You're soliciting people through them. You just can't do it. Now, when you're elected, you can do what you want to do, appoint who you want to appoint. But you cannot run around right now and say, this is my number 2, this is my number 3, and use that as a way to call people and solicit more votes. That's not going to win my support. It's not going to win my family's support. You just can't do it. It's illegal. You want to be a sheriff. Why is it happening? I don't understand. I want someone who's going to facilitate training. Get training to everybody. I want someone who's going to invite the Justice Academy to the Sheriff's Office, make it a training hub for the eastern part of our state, and offer all this training to our officers, to our municipalities, to our neighbors. Use our location as an eastern hub. The Justice Academy is over an hour away. Why aren't we building some bridges here? We want community outreaches, someone who's going to open the doors to the public. I mentioned last night a little bit about, an ongoing Twitter account, an ongoing Facebook account. I'd like to see a program, let's say we name it Down with the Brown. City of Wilmington has their Blue News. Every week you can watch their program where they talk about the week. Well, let's get down with the brown. Let's do a Pender County news broadcast once a week and tell the citizens what's happening in our community. Let's share that information with each other. Opioid epidemic. I want to see some plans on the opioid epidemic. Back in December, we put a 3-part plan on our webpage. It's out there. It's in Facebook. Take my plan and do what you want with it, but show me a plan. Stop talking about it. You are not going to arrest your way out of the opioid problem. It's not going to happen. Any of you officers on the screen right now, you and I both know that by the time we go to the magistrate and they get a bond, they leave and we're still doing our DA package. It's not going to work. They're back out on the street. If you revive somebody with Narcan, they go and get high again if you're not offering them resources and offering them assistance. We have to go after the distributors. We have to go after the big people, the people transporting it through our community. And if you think we don't have a problem, Wilmington's number 1, Jacksonville's number 5, we're in the middle. It's an open-close situation. Just because you don't hear about it on news doesn't mean it's not happening in our community. It is. And I need someone with passion to attack that problem. I need someone who might have personal experience, or might have family members who have suffered. I need someone who's going to attack it head on from law enforcement and from a facilitator standpoint, who's going to bring these groups together and get everybody on the same page, because we got too many people on different pages right now. You're not going to arrest your way out of it. Stop telling people you're going to get strong crime on the opioids. It's not going to work. It's not. Let's get the big dogs and clean up the area, and let's offer some help to these people who need help. Be a facilitator, not just a cop. Let's see. I want to see traffic forums. Who is going to take this position that's going to open up some traffic forums for the community to talk and speak about traffic in their neighborhoods, traffic in the school zones, traffic on Highway 17. I want to see some communication going on so that everybody knows where it's happening, how it's happening, and let's open those doors and explain to people what we're doing to fix it. I want to see some gang forums from the schools. You can say all day long there's no gangs in our schools. Yeah. Talk to your kids. Open your ears, not your mouth. Listen to your children. Our schools are full of gangs. Our schools are full of drugs. We have to do something about that. We have to work with the children, work with the schools. We have to get those strong relationships. I want someone who not only has had to deal with disciplinary issues with officers, you know, written them up, like I said, had to go take their equipment, but I want someone who's written attaboys. Someone who has given officers credit, put officers in for life-saving awards. Someone who has given officers all sorts of accolades for being a good person, for doing a great job. Someone who has stood up in front of everybody and said, hey, this is Deputy so-and-so, and they did a fantastic job. I need someone with that experience to motivate people to work, because we know the pay's not there. The benefits are what they are. We need someone we can trust with a budget. The sheriff is going to get a pretty good sized budget, and he has to decide where it goes throughout his department and what part of it he's going to give back to the community. He has to be fair with it. He has to make the right decisions with it. Someone who has experience dealing with money, dealing with a budget, someone who's dealt with budgets before. We need someone to come in that isn't going to walk in there and never had this much money to deal with before, and they're going to blow it all on patrol equipment and completely forget that we have a constitutional right to the jail, to the courts. We have a 911 center we have to think about. We got animal control. There's so many other branches we have to think about. I need someone who can start day one. I don't know about you guys, but whoever gets our vote, they need to start day one, not day 180. Day one, I need someone to come in there who has the experience in all these different divisions, to have the knowledge to answer questions, to move forward. They can look at the jail, look at the court, look at the civil division, look at the patrol division, look at the child support enforcement, and answer these questions and be smart about it. Not someone who's going to have to learn that you have to afford your inmates so much physical time a week. Well, I'm not going to let them out at all. Well, you can't do that. They're required to 3 exercise sessions, 30 minutes apiece a week. That's the law. And you have to know that as a sheriff, or my citizens are going to have to pay the fine. That's not right. I don't want a politician at all. It's a shame that the sheriff has to pick a party, but you do. If you run as an independent in Pender County, you need 1,650 signatures of registered voters, and they confirm that each one of them is a registered voter in our county. So you're not going to run as an independent in Pender County, because if you get 1,650 votes, you already won. It's a done deal. So you have to run as a Republican or a Democrat. You represent everybody as a sheriff. You don't say, I'm going to write you a ticket because you're a Democrat, and I'm not going to write you one because you're a Republican. That can't have any influence on what you do. None. It's completely bipartisan, and you have to work with everybody in your community, whether you agree or disagree with them. You have to work with them. And I don't want somebody forced down my throat. You can put up, I don't care, 2,000 signs in this county. A sign doesn't vote. I'm done with it. Put up as many as you want. Get as many people to take pictures with you next to you. But this is 2018. The voters speak. Not that person next to you that you're trying to get these endorsements from. I want to see the community step up, and I want to see them pick someone who's qualified. Enough picking people because, well, he took a picture with so-and-so, he must be good. that doesn't qualify the person. Understand the person and their qualities. Pay attention. I know we're at 20 minutes. I'm almost done, I promise. I'm sorry to ruin you guys' night, but almost done. Just some things I have to get out. Educate. Please, every one of you on here, if you will share the part 1 video from last night, the part 2 video from tonight, and get it out there to everybody. Everybody has to see this information because people are being misled in our community, and it's unacceptable. I'm not telling you to vote for me. I'm telling you to pick a candidate who has these qualifications. We haven't registered yet. We'll register if no one comes along that meets these qualifications. We've made that promise. But until somebody comes along, I'm going to keep educating because everybody needs to know what's on the line. The sheriff is a very important position in our community, and we have to pay attention to who gets it, because whoever gets that position, they're going to stay for the next 8 to 12 years. Some of your kids are going to become 16, 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're going to have to deal with the sheriff at some point. You want someone in there who's going to work with everybody. You want someone that you have to look at them and say, this is the person that for the next 10 to 12, 14 years, I'm going to deal with this person. You want someone who is physically fit. You want someone who you don't have to worry is going to fall over while they're speaking. These are things you look at when you look at politicians. You look at them and you say, well, how old is that person, man? Oh, my goodness. You need someone who knows what Twitter is, who knows what Snapchat is. You have to understand these things. I could go on and on and on tonight. There's just so many things that are so important. Do not vote for somebody because so-and-so says they're a good person. I'm glad they're a good person. Vote for the person who's qualified and can do the job. Vote for the person who can go in there day one and start immediately. And when a question comes across their desk, they don't have to say, well, I've never worked in that division before. I got to call somebody. I got to find out. I've never had to work a hurricane before. I've never had to run a command post. We got a homicide. I've never, what do we do in a homicide? I've never had to interview a homicide suspect. We don't need that. I understand that under a sheriff, you have people that do the work, but isn't it nice to have someone there that understands what they're doing? Someone who might say, well, since I'm the sheriff and every piece of paperwork you sign says sheriff by deputy so-and-so, I'm probably responsible for every one of you and all your actions. So when I get that phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning about a search warrant we're going to do, I'm probably going to get out of bed and go read that piece of paperwork and make sure it's valid, because that's what we need. We need a responsible sheriff who takes accountability for the entire county, not just the east side, not just the west side, the entire county, all of it. Every bit of it, from one side to the other side. And we have different problems throughout our county. We have a bypass coming in 2020, which is going to bring so many different aspects to law enforcement to our area. 77,000 cars drive through Highway 210 and Highway 17 every day. 77,000 vehicles drive through that intersection. That was just released by the DOT as part of their study for the bypass. And we need a small town police department. We need small town mentality. Not so sure about that. Not so sure. Now, I'm not saying that we need to go kicking doors in, but we're going to do our job. We're going to be a 21st century law enforcement agency. We're going to open the doors, and we're going to have the community involvement. We're going to have a citizens academy. We're going to have citizens patrol. We're going to do all these things that every other agency around us is doing. But the only way that's going to take place is if we as a community pick someone who has the drive, the motivation, and the experience to do these things. I'm at 25 minutes. I apologize. I went 5 minutes over. I thank every one of you for coming in here tonight. Amy, Jared, Bernadette, Liz, Jeff, Nick Lee, all of you, Kimberly. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'm sorry I went a few minutes over. I know The Walking Dead's on tonight. I got it recorded, so I'm going to go watch it. The kids are in bed now. But again, thank you. Please share video 1, share video 2, and just understand, educate your neighbors, educate your friends, and explain to them. There's so much more involved this year in Pender County. Our population is growing so fast. We've hit 60,000. In the next 10 years, we're going to break 75,000. We have to be proactive. We have to look at this election and understand that whoever gets it is going to be there for the next 2 to 3 to 4 elections. It's just what happens. It's the way it's been. Sheriff Smith did 4 terms. The sheriff before him did 4 terms. So be smart. All of you have a wonderful night. I hope you have a fantastic week this week. Keep an eye on us. We're going to keep an eye every day on what goes on over at the Board of Elections, and we'll make a decision by Wednesday on what we're going to do. But again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. Share the video again with everybody. Educate everybody. We're going to make Pender County strong again, I promise. We're going to make it real strong. Everyone have a good night.